Everybody, peace. Welcome to the GSMC College Football Podcast Show, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As you guys know, I'm your host, Caudill, and I'm so grateful to be with you here again today, guys. Whew. As you can see by the ticker, we've got a very interesting topic to talk about today. So we're going to be discussing the way too early candidates for the Heisman Trophy. We're going to be discussing that. And also in our second segment, we're going to be breaking down the matchup between the Texas A&M Aggies and the Miami Hurricanes this weekend. But before we get started, if you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button to subscribe to us and hit that like button as well. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to us on Patreon as well to stay up to date on all of our latest and exclusive content that you can't get here on YouTube or any streaming platform that you're currently watching it on. And if you haven't already as well, guys, be sure to check out our GSMC Baseball Podcast, GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast, our GSMC Basketball Podcast, and our GSMC NFL Podcast. We've got a lot of great content, guys, and we just want you guys to stay locked in and up to date on everything that we're throwing at you guys. So, that being said, let's go ahead and dive right into it, guys. Who are the candidates on the way too early Heisman list? I know we're going into week two college football. It's, some would say fairly early, extremely early. Some would say to even consider a Heisman list or a front runner for the Heisman Trophy. But as someone who is extremely organized and detailed, I like to stay on top of things, and I like you guys to stay on top of things as well. So I want to just throw a couple names out there. You know, this isn't really etched in stone. I'm not saying these are going to be the finalists for the Heisman Trophy, but if you had to ask me today, who are my front runners? Who's on my list? Who am I watching? Who are my eyes on right now for the Heisman Trophy candidates? This is who I would have on there. And you know, let's just break it down. So I've got four guys so far, and we'll just go from 4 up to 1. Sound good? Let's just do it that way. So, starting at number 4, the quarterback of the Alabama Crimson Tide, Roll Tide, baby, Jalen Milroe. So, some would say, Casuan, who is Jalen Milroe? I've never heard of that guy. For those of you who don't know, Jalen Milroe is a sophomore quarterback at Alabama. He was the backup to Bryce Young. I'm sure you guys all know who Bryce Young is. So Jalen Milroe had a whole season to sit behind Bryce Young, watch his tendencies, watch how he plays, pick up on some of his attributes, and turn into what we see so far is has the ability to be a great starter in the NFL. In college football. So, Jalen Milroe last week against Middle Tennessee State went 13 for 18, 194 yards, and 3 touchdowns in the air. He also added 7 attempts rushing, 48 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Prototypical dual-threat quarterback based on the stats, if you ask me. Mind you, it was against Middle Tennessee State, but this is a Middle Tennessee State that is extremely dominant, extremely formidable, and had a great record last year. We can't forget to mention that Jalen Milroe also did not play in the fourth quarter of this game, so his stats would probably be a little higher if he did. So, like I said, Jalen Milroe, 3 touchdowns in the air, 2 touchdowns on the ground. He showed the ability to control the offense. The stage didn't look too big for him. He didn't make any mistakes in my mind in terms of trying to fit the ball into seams that weren't there. He did a good job of throwing the ball outside of the numbers. Did a great job of throwing against man coverage into tight windows when necessary. He didn't force the ball though. He stayed composed in the pocket when the pressure did come. And he also showed the ability to make audibles, depending on what set or what scheme the defense was in. And having that ability to make pre-snap reads, we all know is huge for a quarterback, but Jalen Milroe showing this ability to make those pre-snap reads as a sophomore is phenomenal. And I have Jalen Milroe on this list because Jalen Merrill is going to have the opportunity to play against Tennessee, LSU, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and an SEC championship game that might more than likely feature Georgia. And if he can in Auburn as well, play Auburn as well. And if Jalen Merrill can produce these type of numbers that he did against Middle Tennessee State, and just be consistent and play behind an amazing offensive line that Alabama has, Jalen Merrill has a very good opportunity to be a Heisman candidate. So he's at number 4 on my list. And they play Texas. Alabama plays Texas this weekend in Tuscaloosa. Another great possible Heisman moment for Jalen Merrill. We'll find out. Number 3 on my way too early Heisman list, Jordan Travis out of Florida State. We all know what Florida State did to LSU over the weekend. We talked about it on the show yesterday. I mean, the number speaks for itself. Jordan Davis, 23 of 31, 342 yards, 4 touchdowns in the air. He also had 7 attempts rushing, 38 yards on the ground, and 1 touchdown. Impeccable, fantastic numbers against what everyone thought was going to be a formidable LSU team. We'll see how they fare going further into the season. But we'll discuss that later. But Jordan Travis played phenomenally on the big stage in a primetime slot, and he showed that the pressure, just like Jalen Merrill, was not too big for him. And the same way that Jalen Merrill is going to benefit from having a huge, stout, dominant offensive line, the same way with Jordan Travis, he has an amazing offensive line that does a great job picking up pressure, which is going to give Jordan Travis more time to make reads in the pocket and put more pressure on the secondary as well. The thing I like about Jordan Travis was that he did a good job of getting the ball out of his hands early when pressure did come. He didn't hold the ball too long in the pocket. He did a good job of stepping up into the pocket, and he also did a good job of scrambling when necessary. He never forced the issue. He never looked like he was flustered. He always looked composed over the course of the game. And Jordan Travis, though he doesn't play in as good of a conference as the SEC, he is in the ACC. And if he can run the table on the ACC, possibly go undefeated, we'll see. He has a great opportunity of being in New York for the Heisman ceremony as well. And number two on my list, Shedeur Sanders of the Colorado Buffalo. I think we all know what Shedeur was able to do this past weekend against his number 17 ranked TCU Horned Frogs, going 38 of 47. Let me just say that again. 38 of 47 in the air, accounting for 515 yards. 515 yards and 4 touchdowns. Those are astronomical numbers. I mean, those are Joe Burrow-esque numbers. Those are Johnny Manziel-esque numbers. Those are Kyler Murray-esque numbers. Those are Tua Tagovailoa-esque numbers. I mean, these are numbers that you only see from the great quarterbacks, the all-time great quarterbacks in college football. And Shedeur showed an amazing. What stood out to me with Shedeur was his throwing accuracy on the deep ball. When you look at him in his frame, he doesn't look like he's the biggest quarterback in terms of his frame. But when you watch him throw it, you can tell he has a lot of strength in his shoulders and also in his hips and also in his core as well, with his ability to turn and get the ball out. And Shedeur showed amazing accuracy on the deep throws. He did a good job of, same way with Jalen Merrill, making pre-snap reads, making audibles as well. And Shedeur also did a good job of staying composed in the pocket. We all know that Colorado does have a weak offensive line compared to these other teams. And Shedeur is going to get a lot of pressure. He's going to get a lot of pressure over the course of this season. And if Shedeur can continue to show the ability to not only scramble out of the pocket and make the throw, but also step up into the pocket, step up into the pressure, and make those throws. There's no reason why Shedeur shouldn't be in New York for the Heisman ceremony. And the thing that Shedeur is also going to have, not to go along with his skill set and his talent level, is the narrative. The only thing that people are talking about now in college football is Colorado and the amazing things that Deion Sanders has done so far in terms of establishing culture and changing the landscape and the accountability factors in Colorado. And that narrative, we all know, sports is entertainment and it's all about narrative. That narrative is going to be huge. It's going to be huge for Shedeur Sanders in terms of this Heisman race, and he'll be able to feed into that and play into that, and it'll be into his benefit if they continue to perform well. This week they play Nebraska. If he can perform well against Nebraska and they continue to move up into the top 20, in the top 25, they're ranked number 22 now. Then things only bode well for Mr. Sanders. So Shedeur was at number 2. Who do we have at number 1 on our way to early Heisman list? I don't think it's any question, guys. Caleb Williams of USC. A lot of sports pundits and analysis had Caleb Williams as their preseason favorite to win the Heisman Trophy. I didn't, but I must admit he has been the most impressive quarterback that I've seen so far. He's been not necessarily the most dominant quarterback, but he's been the most impressive to watch. Not just in terms of his throwing. All of these quarterbacks throw the ball extremely well, especially on the deep ball. But Caleb's ability to extend plays with his feet, not downhill, but more lateral, elongating the play, allowing his receivers to get open. The thing that Caleb has on his side is that USC is going to be a great team. They're going to be a great team. They have a great chance to win the Pac-12, and if they can win the Pac-12, then they have a great chance of making the college football playoff. The thing that Caleb also has on his side is that a lot of people already had him slated as the preseason favorite to win the Heisman, and that bodes well for him. He doesn't have to do much convincing to the voters. He just has to play on par for the remainder of the season. Last week, he went 18 for 24, 319 yards in the air, and 5 touchdowns. And those are once again astronomical, great, fantastic numbers. And if he can continue to keep this up, then there's no reason he shouldn't be in New York as well. And I know it's a little early for our Heisman list, but I just want to get a head start on it. I want to get a head start on it, guys. So when people try to say, when my prediction is right, and people look back on this and say that I was wrong, or that I didn't get my prediction right, I want to be able to go back to this episode right here and say, no, guys, I had this list right here, starting in week 2. So it's good to be on top of this, guys. And this is subject to change as well. But if I had to make a list, right now, my top 4 candidates, this is who I would go with right now. And as you guys continue to watch more college football, and as you guys venture with me as this season goes along, we'll start to see that these guys are going to be more than likely the top candidates going into the end of the season. But guys, sticking right now in this moment, we've got a very interesting matchup coming up this Saturday between the Texas A&M Aggies and the Miami Hurricanes. How will that matchup turn out? What are some things to look for? Guys, stick around. We're going to cover all of that up next. All right, everybody, welcome back. We have got an interesting topic to talk about in the second segment. But if you missed our first segment, we just dissected and broke down the top players on my way too early Heisman list. But guys, if you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button, that like button as well, so you can stay up to date on all of our newest content. And to subscribe to us on Patreon as well, so you can, like I said, follow all of our exclusive content as well. But in this segment, guys, we are going to be breaking down the matchup between the number 23 ranked Texas A&M Aggies and the Miami Hurricanes. Now, at a glance, just casually looking at this game, people wouldn't think much of it. They wouldn't consider this much of a game. But one thing I have learned in my many, many years of watching college football, that it's always an interesting matchup when you get an SEC team and an ACC team squared off against each other. And seeing that both of these teams had great starts to their season, Texas A&M is coming off a 52-10 blowout victory over New Mexico, and Miami is coming off a 38-3 victory over Miami of Ohio. Both of these teams look to be in great rhythm, and like I said, coming off of dominant victories, and they look like they're in rhythm, and they look like they are coming for a collision course in this game right here. Tyler Van Dyke of Miami threw a touchdown on his first play. He finished the game with 17-22, 201 yards, and 1 touchdown, and he had 1 interception. The offense for Miami did look balanced. They looked nuanced. They had much more diversity compared to last year under new offensive coordinator Shannon Dawson. And that's one thing that is going to make this game interesting, because we know that Texas A&M can struggle. Well, they struggled last year defensively at times, and with this new offense that Miami is running, will they be able to put pressure on that Texas A&M defense? And if we look at it right now, the spread right now is Texas A&M -4. So it looks like the odds makers in Vegas also have this game being close as well. The total point line is 49.5. And if we look at the injury report, Texas A&M currently has tight end Donovan Green out with an ACL. Tight end Max Wright is questionable with a toe injury. And wide receiver Micah Teese is out with a suspension. So we see a lot of key pieces on the offensive side for Texas A&M missing. And with Miami, running back to Trevante Citizen is questionable right now with the knee injury, but I think he'll be more than likely be playing based on what I've heard. And tight end Elijah Arroyo is also questionable with the knee injury as well. But also, based on what I heard in my sources, I do believe that they will both be playing for Miami this week. And if we just want to go back to last season when these two teams matched up, the Aggies screeched out a close victory. Highly tout defensive battle last year against Miami, winning by a score of 17-9. Though there are new transfers and new players on both sides, you can't make too much of it. You can't carry too much of what happened to last season to this season. It's a new slate, but it is something to look into. It's something to take into account to an extent. And based on all that, based on everything that we've discussed, knowing the direction that Texas A&M is moving in as a program, they do seem to be moving forward. There was the past 2 or 3 years, they floated around that top 15, top 25 range. They look like now they're posing they might have the ability to move into that top 10. I know their season before, they floated around with that top 5 a little bit before they lost, or in that top 10, before they lost late in the season. But Texas A&M does have the ability to possibly be a top 10 team in the country, if they can get healthy, especially in the offensive end. But because they're not completely healthy right now, and they are facing off against a pretty impressive Miami team based on what I've seen, especially on the offensive end. And Miami's defense also does look extremely talented. They look physical enough to compete with an SEC team. And I'll be honest, guys. I am questioning this matchup, and not questioning my decision of who I'm going to go with, but this is a tentative, very tentative prediction I'm making. So I will completely understand, and it will be no surprise to me at all if my prediction is wrong. But one thing I do know for certain, and one thing I do know that's going to happen in this game, is that it will be a close game. Without a doubt, it will be a close game. It's not going to be a blowout. I do agree with the spread. It will be a close game. And I know my SEC fans are going to rake me through the coals on this one, but I gotta go with Miami. I know we just said that Texas A&M does have the possibility to maybe be a top 10 team at the end of the season. They do. They still have an opportunity to play well in SEC conference play. But I believe Miami will win this game, and it will be a close game. I have Miami winning this game by a score of 27-23. And I think it's going to go down to the last possession. I think Miami's going to have an opportunity to score on their last possession with about 3 minutes left, 2.5 minutes left. I think they'll be able to score, and they'll be able to get a stop Texas A&M on the very, very last possession. So I have this game going down to the wire. However, if Texas A&M loses this weekend to Miami, it does not mean that their season is over, because what's going to happen is people are going to see that this Miami team is much better than the preseason polls first thought and what they predicted. I think this Miami team is going to be extremely talented and extremely competitive in the ACC, and they are another program that is trending upwards. So, like I said, I have Miami winning this game by a score of 27-23. I am tentatively making that prediction. I would not be surprised if Texas A&M does win this game, but I will be going with the Miami Hurricanes for this game. So, thank you in advance. I know my ACC fans, you're welcome. However, my SEC fans, don't worry. It is still, at the end of the day, it is still Roll Tide, and through Roll Tide, the national championship. Though they say it has to go through Georgia, it will always have to go through Alabama. So, there's that. But guys, that is all we have on the show for today. Thank you guys so much for listening and tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow at the same time to cover more of the biggest news and storylines going on in college football. So guys, until then, continue to stay safe, be vigilant, make smart decisions, and until next time, guys.